Hello and happy Future Day. I'm very pleased to be taking part in this 24-hour worldwide celebration brought to us by the Millennium Project, Humanity Plus, and many other entities around the world. So now I'm going to go to the slide set for myself and Ishita Moghe, who are presenting this to you. Okay, so our presentation is entitled The Shape of the Future in 2050, Solving the Unfixable Problems of the World with Multifaceted Narrow AI and Youth Creativity, Creating a Positive Medical Future for Everyone. So let me tell you a bit about us. We have no disclosures, but there are two surprising facts about us. We're big fans of Yuval Noah Harari, but we also disagree with his assertion that no one knows what the world will be like in 2050. That is an assumption that comes from considering humans as the only actors. If you factor in multifaceted narrow AI, then predictions can be made of what the world will be like in 2050. The other surprising thing about us is we're not unlike you, the audience. But we have had surprising success since 2018, changing things through video presentation online. In fact, such success that it's hard to find evidence for the other side of the arguments. The things we changed are so different now that you can't find the remaining evidence for the other side of the argument. And if we could do that, have that potent effect, you could too. And that's what we mean by agency on the next slide. So our objectives, first of all, to tell you that one person has more agency, more ability to affect change in the world than was ever the case before, can bring about bigger change and faster than ever before. The COVID pandemic has reset everything, creating enormous opportunities. Now, getting back to this fallacy of the human-only scenarios for 2050, there are many discussions you can find where people discuss what humans are going to do, what human organizations are going to do, what they should do, and so on, never coming to any conclusion about what the world will be like. And that's because they're leaving out narrow AI as a player. And that AI is a player that's been apparent for a very long time. If you look at my video from September 6th, 2001, 20 years ago, you can see one of the most savvy and insightful people in the tech area, Sarah Diamond, who founded the Banff New Media Center and who became the president of the Ontario Institute of Art and Design, where she led that organization for 15 years. You can watch her being pleasantly distracted by an AI from my computer doing this Aaron artificial intelligence painting screensaver. And it was not irritating, it was rather pleasant, both for her and for the audience. And she says that she doesn't think she can really compete with that. And that was 20 years ago. And 10 years ago, in another video of mine, you can see Sony Aibo robotic dogs presenting on video reciting poetry, performing musical selections, and so on. It's really amazing what was already available 10 to 20 years ago. And the reality now is really very impressive. If you look at DeepMind's AlphaFold, success in solving protein folding shows how narrow AI can solve important problems humans could never solve alone. Things like global warming, nuclear war, male versus male aggression. These are all things that humans don't seem to be making much progress on solving, but I think they're similar in difficulty to protein folding. And since AI was capable of solving that, it should be capable of solving those other things. Okay, so now for a moment, I'm going to stop screen sharing and go to some virtual backgrounds to tell you what I mean. Now, this first virtual background is a depiction of narrow AI. And when we're talking about the shape of the future, I don't know if that phrase means anything to you, but you can imagine that the real future in 2050 is, in a sense, going to be narrow because of the narrow AI, but very deep and very long because of the great power of those narrow AI entities that can solve other problems for us, just as they did protein folding. So here is the article in Science, Breakthrough of the Year, AI disentangles protein folding. Probably many of you are already aware of that. And of course, Edmonton plays a role in that. DeepMind is headquartered both in Edmonton and in London, UK. And this is a DeepMind entity that did this solving of protein folding. But when you think of the other big problems that we have, global warming, nuclear war, these are also things that we don't seem to be able to solve just as groups of humans. And it is kind of amusing when you listen to Yuval Noah Harari saying, no one knows what the world of 2050 will be like. Actually, if you go into Shutterstock, you can find numerous depictions of the world of 2050. This is one of them. This is if we don't make the changes that we should. If we don't engage AI, then we end up with plastic and deserts. Not very positive outcome. But I think with the help of AI, working cooperatively with narrow AI, we can have a very positive future. And I think that needs to be part of the discussion. And when you bring that in, then the world can be very positive, and it sort of changes everything. Okay, I'm going to go back to my slide set. All right. So moving on then. Yeah, so this is what I just talked about. So do we have agency? Can we make change in the world? As I indicated, since 2018, it's really remarkable all the things that we have been able to change through online videos. And it's amazing how quickly that happened. Now, in the past, in my career, there were changes that were very slow. In the Banff classification, which I created, We're still struggling with borderline changes after 30 years. Isolated V lesions in arteries discussed as evidence for rejection. That's been going on for 8 years. And it's true that these changes are well documented. It's clear who's saying what and what the arguments are, but it takes a heck of a long time. Whereas we've had many examples of changing things quickly. The Human Cell Atlas Project, single cell transcriptomics, we complained about the fact that this seemed to be excluded from all major meetings. And within days of that complaint, one of the leaders of Human Cell Atlas Science was appointed as chair of the program committee for the 2018 ASN meeting. A Human Cell Atlas project leader was also assigned to a plenary talk at the 2018 American Society of Nephrology meeting. Yuval Noah Harari, he had a claim that human culture would be stuck entirely because all plot lines would be wrecked, because all plot lines for movies, TV shows, novels, plays, whatever thing appeals to you, they all depend upon human decision-making. Humans wouldn't make decisions anymore because machines would make them much better. And so our culture would be completely wrecked. We pointed out that that is ridiculous. Humans are adaptable, and actually if so much intellect exists that machines could make decisions like that for us, our lives would actually be much richer in a lot of ways. So with our complaint, he later amended his statement to say that human reaction to machine decision-making is a work in progress and no predictions can be made. Bertalan Mesko, the medical futurist, said there are all these things that machines will never be able to do. Machines, AI can never be empathetic, can't do nonlinear thinking, cannot interpret data. There'll always be tasks like the Heimlich maneuver that algorithms and robots can never complete, and human machine cooperation is the ultimate solution. There is nothing better. However, in his own publication, he said something different from that, that AI will not replace physicians, but physicians using AI will replace physicians not using AI. It's another way to look at it, but it does still show that AI is going to become an increasingly powerful force in medicine. So do we have agency? Can we make change? Taken together, these three examples suggest our videos were accomplishing major things and we do have agency. It was very pleasant for Ishita and me to meet with the sort of worldwide leader of the Human Cell Atlas project and to share with her the success of how the promotion is going. My father, who died in January 2018, was an internist, became chief of medicine, chief of staff at the Erie VA Medical Center. And he emphasized that in internal medicine, you never really know day to day whether you're helping patients on a one-to-one basis unless you're performing procedures. Most of your daily patient encounters, you cannot be sure you're helping the individual patient. You only know that in aggregate from multiple encounters. This principle applies here also and in modern life in general. Okay, second objective, the same technologies that cause burnout amongst physicians when they go wrong can create a positive medical future when they go right. So this is Moore's law, the exponential curve that predicts the things that we commonly discuss about the future. That in 2029, machines will be as smart as individual humans, and in 2045, machines will be as smart as the whole aggregate human race, take over the future agenda of the world. And we can only really figure out what's going on if we cooperate with them. Our great success throughout the history of the human species has been our ability to cooperate. So this will be a new way to cooperate. So there is a lot more data available for artificial intelligence now. The Single Cell Atlas project provides an amazing amount of data, whereas previously we just had aggregate data for big chunks of tissue. Now we can do it cell by cell. 2045 is only 24 years from now. Many of you will still be working then. What will medical careers be like when machines are smarter than the whole aggregate human race? Well, that depends upon what we do. We can influence that. There could be man-made diseases worse than anything we have now, and bioterrorism. But probably, if we manage things properly, most of the diseases we know today will be gone or easily treated. The focus of medicine will be on human enhancement and social responsibility, improving society to improve those health factors which are societal dependent. And probably burnout will become much less of a problem than it is today, where 54% of doctors say they're burned out, 88% of doctors say they're moderately to severely stressed, and 59% of doctors wouldn't recommend a career in medicine to their children. That's not the way I feel, but it is the way many people feel. So things will get better in that way. Digitalization in medicine can help prevent burnout, and we're already seeing that. We just have a new electronic medical record system here, Connect Care, Epic, and Beaker, and it really is making things better for our medical lives at this institution. Similarly, whole slide imaging in pathology is a great improvement in diagnostic pathology. And Ishita and I have been presenting at these conferences, Digital Pathology and AI, the past few years. And this is a very exciting area of rapidly advancing science in medicine. And you can imagine other things coming into play: gamification, crowdsourcing, computer design, machine learning. In pharma companies now, much of the analysis of the promise of new agents is almost completely automated, with machines doing all the work, and that works much better than when it was all based on human activity. So in the Banff classification, which is the entity in medicine that I'm most closely associated with, we've had consensus generated diagnoses, and in the long run, we'll be making diagnoses based on biology itself, things like the single cell atlas, single cell transcriptomics. So that combined with digital pathology and machine learning will make patient care, pathology, and computer science and AI, everything will be better. Better for patients, better for doctors. That will apply to every organ system. Every aspect of medicine and healthcare spheres will be affected by these technologies, and the world will be much better than it is today. The third objective is to tell you that physicians gain something very valuable by spending time with and listening to the views of people very different from him or herself. And many of you would recognize this has been a characteristic of my career from the beginning. I've surrounded myself with young people for the past 49 years. And it's been a very nice life. The only people I have to talk to during the day, people between the ages of 15 and 33, and a lot of good communication takes place. So that process began in 1973 when I was an intern in pathology and took 5 Oberlin College students for a winter term program in January 1973. And that interaction with undergraduate students has continued throughout my whole career. And I have enjoyed every minute of it. And student-driven innovation, the creation of nephrology immersion, to see what happens when you teach a bright young person kidney medicine before medical school. Why not? Why shouldn't that work? And creation of the LabMP 590 course, Technology in the Future of Medicine. Now in its 10th year, there are 33 students who are involved with that course this term, and we're all having a great time, both me and the students. So I think also bringing art and science together is very important. Mallory Chipman, one of the best singers in town, she and I have a joint project that's been going on for some time called The Future and All That Jazz, that brings important areas of science together with poetry and music. We actually have an album coming out on, we believe, Future Day 2022. So March 1st, 2022, the album of The Future and All That Jazz will come out. We also want to point out to you that this emphasis on creativity of young people was really broadened and emphasized at the Biden inauguration with the poetry presentation from Amanda Gorman. And there's nobody on earth who doesn't know who she is now. And so that's very, very cool. And I myself have quite a poetry history that some of you will probably be aware of, particularly Tuesday night poetry here in Edmonton at the Nook Cafe. So Rudolf Virchow, when he was 27, wrote this: "It is the curse of humanity that it learns to tolerate even the most horrible situations by habituation. Physicians are the natural attorneys of the poor, and the social problems should be largely solved by them." In other words, if you fix societal problems like hunger and poverty, a lot of medical diseases would be greatly lessened. So that's the idea of the social responsibility of medicine, which has been a very important guiding principle of the technology and future of medicine course. AI and the creativity of young people can help promote social accountability in medicine, creating changes in society, supporting equity, diversity, and inclusion, and eliminating the poverty and injustice that leads to many health challenges. Social responsibility is the idea behind the concept of medicine writ large, that is the guiding principle of the Technology and Future of Medicine course, now in its 10th year. So, getting back to what I talked about in slide 4 of this presentation, the world is our oyster. It really can be a very positive future. Narrow AI can offer us amazing help solving all those great problems humans cannot get past themselves: global warming, nuclear war, male against male aggression, just as it did with protein folding. Factoring that symbiosis of us and machines into a narrative for the future, and then you really have something. Very likely positive future with much wider possibilities than we have ever had before. Thank you very much, and we welcome your questions. Okay.